Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. So I'm Shubham and you're watching Let's Create an App. So in this video we are going to talk about how we can create a pulsing animation in an iOS application development. So basically pulsing animation is kind of a pulse are generating from some points, and just basically it's a very cool animation, and we can use this kind of animations to show that something is already pressed, and just like a mic is on or something like this thing. And let's look into the demo first and then we will talk about this thing. So these are the three buttons on which I have already created a functionality of pulsing. So let's tap these things, and these three buttons are showing some pulses. This showing a little bit big pulse, the radius of the pulse are more, and in this button the radius of the pulse is a little bit less. And in this button we are showing a two pulses of different colors with some different radius. So we can customize all this kind of pulse according to our need, and we only create a single class for this pulsing animation, and then we will call this class from our view controller with some parameters definitely. And we are getting all this kind of cool stuff. And if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get all this kind of iOS stuff. And if you have any query or suggestion, please post that thing in the comment box. Apart from that, I've also started working on Flutter, so soon you will get videos on Flutter. So these are some demos which I'm working on. As soon they are completed, I'll definitely show videos on them. And so let's start the video. Let's create an app. So open Xcode, click on single view application, click on next. Just give the whatever name you want to give. I'm just giving pulse animation, something like this, and be sure the language should be Swift. Click on next and save this project where you want to save, on desktop, on documents, or in any other folder. Now our project is ready. Now first we have to move to the view controller, and we only need a single button or maybe two buttons or three buttons. It's up to you. I'm just taking a single button on my storyboard and just creating an outlet for this storyboard. So let's take a button. So just drag and drop this button on the center and just give the constraints something like this, and a height and width of this button obviously should be the same because we are going to make this button a circular kind of a thing. And one more thing, that just change the color of this button in the title. So the button title is nothing, and the background color of the button should be like red, something like this. And let's move to the story view controller first. So now let's create one outlet for this button and action as well. So button, just give the name whatever you want to give, and just create one action also so that we can perform action whenever we click on this button, on click button, something like this. So our basic structure is ready. Now let's move to the view controller and just remove this storyboard thing. Now it's pure view controller. Now let's make this button a circular first. So like for making this button circular, we need to use a corner radius thing. So button dot layer dot corner radius. I guess you guys all know how corner radius works. So we need to make the height and width of the button equal and divide the height and width of the button by 2. So simply write button dot frame dot height divided by 2, and button dot enemy to clip to bound is equals to true. So by doing these things, this button will become in the circular format. Now whenever we click on this button, we need to call that pulsing animation. So for first make a simple class of CALayer, so that we can or we can say that simple class and extend the CALayer in that class. So let's create one class. Just move to that folder and press control plus N, and just click on Swift class, something like this, and just give the name whatever you want to give. I'm just giving pulse animation, something like this, and now create this class. Now create one class in this, and the name of the class is pulse animation. This will be the super class of CALayer. CALayer, I guess, yeah, CALayer. It's not coming because, yeah, definitely it will not come because UI kit is not imported. UI kit, something like this. Now CALayer will come, CALayer. Now we have created a one class of CALayer type. Now we have to define some basic properties which we need to perform this pulsing animation. So for that, first we have to define the where, and the first thing that is animation duration. So simply write animation duration, and this animation duration is of time interval type, and the default value of this time interval is 1.5, or you can choose 1 or 2, something like this. Now we have to define the radius for this animation, that how much big circle we want. So simply like radius, and this should be of CG float type, CG float, and the default value of the radius is just like 200. And now we have to define the number of pulses, that how many pulses we want. Just like in the demo we are showing a pulses continuously, and we can also define the number of pulses, just like 2 pulse or 3 pulse, and it will stop, and it will not show any more pulses. So simply the where the number of pulses, something like this, and it should be of a float type, float F capital, float type. And the number of pulses, just like whatever pulses you want, just like I'm just passing a 10. So it's up to you, you can define all the things. Now one more property we need to define, and that is what kind of animations we are going to use. So basically we are going to use two type of animations in this. That is, our first is a CA basic animation, and the second is we are going to use a keyframe animation. So the CA basic animation is just like simple animations which we want to perform, a single animation we want to perform, and a keyframe animation is used to perform multiple things at the same time. And a group animation is, and one more thing which we are going to use, that is a group animation, and we are going to use group animations to combine all the other animations together, just like a CA basic animation and a CA keyframe animation. So first we need to define a CA animation group. So for that we need to define one property over here, and that is a where animation group, something like this, and this is of CA animation group type, CA animation group type, something like this. So till now we have defined a simple properties. Now we have to define the init, just as it will prompt an error that int is required for this class. So let's define int. So just simply write int, and it will override an int, and simply write super dot int, and in this we have to define that layer 1, I guess, yeah, layer 1. So we also have to define layer here, layer, and that is any, because animations are performed on layers, so that's why it will init with layer, and it was saying that it will also want a required init, so just simply add this required init also. Now we have to define one more constructor, or one more user defined init, so that is init, and in this init we have to simply pass the parameters which we want from the user. Just for example, if I'm calling this init from my main class, then I need some parameters in this. So just like number of pulses, and the number of pulses is of CG float type, as we defined at the top. And if the user didn't pass anything in this, then it will, we are going to provide a default value, and that is float dot we can also define infinity, or we can simply define the numbers, just like 10. And one more thing we have to define, that is a radius. So simply radius, and this is of CG float type, and one more thing, that from where the pulsing will be starting, so we have to define the position, and this is of CG point type, something like this. So the our user defined constructor is ready, or user defined init is ready. Now we have to define the super.init, because it's showing an error. Definitely it will take a super.init. Super means its parent class, and we have to define the init of its parent class. Now we have to set all the properties in this init. So whenever the class get initialized, this method will be called, and all the work will be performed over here. So let's first set a simple thing, just like self.background color, and the background color is the basically we are defining a UI color dot whatever color you want to put. I'm just putting black dot CG color, something like this. And now we have to use one more thing, that is content scale. So self dot content scale, and we are going to use this thing because UI screen dot main dot scale yeah, we are going to use this thing because it will automatically scaling from 0 to some radius. So that's why we have to define this thing for the layer, and we have to define the opacity also. So whenever it gets scaling, we define the opacity. So self dot opacity is equals to 0, and we also have to define the radius. So self dot radius is equals to whatever radius user passes, something like this. Now we have to give the number of pulses also. Self dot number of pulses is equals to number of pulses, something like this. And we have to set the position also of this layer. So self dot position is equals to position, something like this. So we are done with this init, and we have to now put some animations and put some animation blocks, and then we have to call these animation blocks on this init. So let's define some methods in the animation for performing these animation. So let's first we have to use a CA basic animation. So for that, just simply write func, and we are going to use this animation for our scaling purpose. So just give the name that scale animation, and this method will return CA basic animation, something like this. And in this we have to first let a property, let a scale animation is of CA basic animation type, and we have to use a key path parameter over here, and the key path is what we are going to perform by using the CA animation. So we have to define the key path. We want to transform and scale with respect to x and y, so we have to define the key path very carefully over here in the string format. So just like transform dot scale dot xy. So simply it will scale things with respect to xy. Now we have to define the from value of this scale animation. So scale animation dot from value, and this from value will take any kind of a thing. So we have to use a ns number, and in this we have to define a value thing. So we have to use this float, or you can also use bool, something like this. It will automatically convert, and we have to now define the to value, scale dot to value, and in this also we have to define the ns number, and similarly that float 1, something like this. Now we have to set the duration of the scale animation. So scale animation dot duration is equals to the duration which we have for the animation duration which we have taken over here, animation duration. So like animation duration, this one. So this is done. Now we have to simply return this scale animation. So return scale animation, something like this. Scale animation like this. So now this method is completed. Now we have to define a keyframe animations function. So just simply write func, and this is using for opacity thing. So create opacity animation for changing the opacity at the runtime. So this is written as CA keyframe animation type, keyframe animation, simply like this. Now we have to define one property inside this thing, let opacity animation kind of a thing, animation. This is of CA keyframe type of animation, and in this we have to define this key path again, and in the key path we are using opacity kind of a thing. So simply like this. So if you don't know what is key path and how we can use CA keyframe animation, CA basic animation, so you can also go in this documentation and check that what it's for and how we can use this keyframe animation with some example. So this is a basic thing. I'm also learning all these things from over here and just exploring over the Google and searching all the things on the net and presenting and combining all these things and present to you. So this is really good thing. This documentation is quite good. Now we have to set the duration for this opacity animation also. So duration is equals to same as we have animation duration at the top. Now we have to define the values as well as key time for this opacity animation. So opacity animation dot key time. Now we have to define the key time. So key time is just like uh, for example, if I am having a 1 second, so in the 1 second what parts, what animation will be performed. So at the initial 0 second some animation will perform, at 0.3 second some other animation will perform, and at the end some animation perform, and it will be defined in this value thing. So this is also a array of any, and in this the opacity of that thing is 0.4, and uh, at the 0.3 seconds the opacity will be like 0.8, and at the end the opacity will remain 0. So this is the basic thing which this function will come do. So now let's return this thing, opacity animation, something like this. Now we have to create one more function so that all these things are combined together and worked perfectly. So it's showing an error, definitely it will show because we didn't place parenthesis over here. Now let's create one more function setup setup animation group, something like this. Now in this animation group we have to create, or we have to use the property which we have created at the top, that animation group thing. So simply write self dot animation group, this one, and in this we have to set the duration of this group, and this duration of this group is the animation duration, this one property. Now we have to use the animation group self dot animation group dot, and now we have to use the repeat count. So repeat count is used to number of times the animation will repeat, and the number of pulses will be the parameters we have to pass over here. And now we have to set one more property, that is just CAMedia timing function. So let's write first, and then we will discuss. So let default curve is equals to CAMedia timing function, this one, and in this we have to define this name thing, and in this we have to pass the dot default thing, dot default, this one. So you can guys similarly go and this documentation and check that how it's work. So basically it's a kind of a pacing which it will define with respect to the time, that how fast the pulse will move. So basically this function will do that thing. Now we have to just set the animation timing thing. So self dot animation group dot timing function. So this we have defined this default curve or this timing function for this reason, default curve, something like this. Now we have to self dot animation group dot animation, and now we have to add the array of animation. This is the array, and in this we have to add two animations, that is a scale animation, the first one, and now we have to define as create opacity animation. So these two animations are added in this setup animation group. Now we have to call this method from our init method. So till now we have simply set up our animations. Now let's call these two methods from this init group. So before calling these methods we have to define the bounds and corner radius of our that pulsing layer. Sorry, pulsing view is not there. Self dot bounds, and the bounds are just like CG rect. We have to use this x float y, so 0 0, and the width of that pulse is like radius, whatever user defined the radius, that one, this one, and into 2. We are doing into 2 because we have to make that radius in the circular format. So we have to divide 2 and we have to do into 2 for bounds. Now we have to define the height, and similarly height is also radius into 2, something like this. Now we have to set the corner radius. So self dot corner radius is equals to radius. So that's why we have defined bounds of this layer 2 into 2, width and height is into 2, as we have defined in this view controller, that why we are using this thing. Now we have to create one or run this thing, these methods on the main thread. So for doing that thing, let's write capital this patch q, this one, dot global, this one, and in this we have to define one QA class, and that is a default dot default, this one, and we have to run this thing on asynchronous like this. And again we have to call this method, that is a setup animation, self dot setup animation group, like this. Now we have to move to the background thread or main thread asynchronously. Now we have to call one more method in the main thread, so that is dispatch queue dot main dot async. So it will not wait to the other code to be execute. Self dot add, and in this add we have to define a animation group, self dot animation group, and the key value is like pulse, something like this. Now we have to move to the view controller, and on the click of this button we have to call that pulse animation method from this controller. So let create one variable, let pulse is equals to pulse animation, this class, and we have to define this method, and the radius the number of pulses are like, just define 4 pulses in the initial level and the radius of 200, and CG point. So we have to define the CG point for this this pulsing thing. So we are using sender is just like for button dot center. I guess why it's not coming, it's showing an error that it's okay. Yeah, let's make it UIButton like this, and it will now work fine, I guess. Yeah, now it's working fine. Now we have to add two more things in this animation group. So first, now we have to add two more things, just like duration, because we don't want to make a default thing or use the default thing. So first we have to define the animation duration. Why it's not coming? Let's go and check into the class. Sorry, yeah, there's an issue that we are not using this pulse animation. We have to use this pulse dot animation duration, and that is 1.0, and we have to use the background color also, dot background color, and the background color, whatever color you want to define. So I'm using color literal for this thing, and in this we have to define the red color, which we have defined the color of the button. Now we have to insert this layer in this as a sub layer of the view layer, self dot layer, self dot view dot layer, self dot view dot layer dot insert sub layer, this one or this one. So there are three methods of sub layers. So we have to add this layer below the super layers like this. So we have to add pulse, and the below layer is self dot view dot layer like this. So now let's run and check that it is working fine or not. So this is a very cool animation. You can use this animation various places. So the simulator is running, application is running now. So we have this button. So as I tap on this button, there is a very cool animation is working with a pulse, but it will only come up with 3 pulses because we have defined number of pulses to 4. Now let's change this number of pulses to float dot infinity, and it will uh, make these pulses continuously without stopping. Infinity pulses are there now. So this is also one of the cool thing of this pulsing animation. And if you want to add more than one pulse or do some other thing, you can do various things, just like copy this code simply like this and paste over here to add one more pulse. Just give the name pulse 1, pulse 1, pulse 1, and simply pulse 1, simply like this. Just change the color to like some orange or blue and change the duration to 1.5, something like this. Radius is also can be changed 100. So now it will show two pulses simultaneously with some gap between their timings. So this is a really cool thing which we are getting. So this is for today. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button, and if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. If you have any query or suggestion, please post that thing in the comment box. Thank you.